Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. We'd like to begin the morning plenary. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to begin the morning plenary. So, welcome to the morning plenary of the Presidential Conference Facing Tomorrow, Turning Crisis into Opportunities. And may I invite the President of the State of Israel, Mr. Shimon Peres. Welcome, Mr. President Peres, and I'd like also to greet the distinguished guests who are with us this morning, the Foreign Minister of Canada, Minister of Information of the People's Republic of China, Minister of Labor and Welfare of Bulgaria, and you distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Again, welcome to the morning plenary, the opening plenary of the Presidential Conference Facing Tomorrow, Turning Crisis into Opportunities. One of the most quoted sayings is, "It is very hard to predict, especially the future. If I may predict, this will always be so." And cliches such as this persist because too often cliches are true. If someone, for example, would ask me, or anybody sitting here, on the 6th of October, 1973, which country shall exist 20 years hence? Tiny Israel fighting again for its very survival, or the mighty USSR, 22 million square kilometers, scariest superpower on the face of this planet, hundreds of millions of citizens, every mineral possible, nuclear submarines, what have you. Moscow County alone is 3 times the area of Israel. Who could imagine that 20 years after Moshe Dayan spoke of the destruction of the Third Temple during the darkest moments of that terrible war, Israel would flourish? That this country would be today in the top 15% of the Human Development Index of the United Nations, ahead of all our neighbors and ahead of all the successor states of the USSR. And that mighty USSR would collapse and disappear. The Jews and their family members, millions strong, would come to Israel. The collapse of the Iron Curtain was a crisis, albeit a positive one, and one of the outcomes of the fall of the totalitarian regimes in Eastern Europe was indeed an opportunity for the Jewish people, for Israel. And this, turning crisis into opportunities, is the subject of this morning plenary in tomorrow, the Presidential Conference. So it is my great honor to invite Professor Ruth Gavizon, don't laugh at me, this is her correct spelling name, from Israel, President of Metzilah, Center of Zionist, Jewish, Liberal and Humanist Thinking. Please, Professor Gavizon. Bernard-Henri Lévy, world-renowned philosopher and writer from France. Dr. Raymond Kurzweil, American inventor, writer, futurist. And Professor Dr. Javier Solana from Spain, High Representative of the Common Foreign and Security Policy and the Secretary General of the Council of the European Union. And now, I would like to invite Professor Menachem Ben Sasson, President of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Professor Ben Sasson.
His Excellency, the President of the State of Israel, my President, Mr. Shimon Peres, distinguished guests and members of the dais, colleagues, friends, turning crisis into opportunities, not only in tomorrow's scenery, but in yesterday's history vis-a-vis the tomorrow of yesterday. What can we learn from history? Usually, those who didn't learn anything from history are doomed to repeat on others' mistakes. This nation, the Jewish people, minority through the ages, know exactly what's the meaning of turning crisis into opportunity. Let's take one example. 1300 years ago, Muslim conquest. People were doomed to be irrelevant. The old nation. One cannot understand the change of the Jewish people, which is not only survival, it had to do with thriving. All of a sudden, Jews started writing philosophy in Arabic. Jews started writing medicine in Arabic, astronomy in Arabic, mathematics in Arabic, poetry also from time to time in Arabic. What is it? Is it not turning a crisis into opportunity? People tell to the Hebrew University that is honored to be a partner in making the content of this conference, are you not too old of universities, too many subjects, too many topics? Mr. President, the second sentence of the opening session of yesterday, and even the days before, you repeated again and again, we are the century of the brain. In order to understand the brain, it is not enough to deal with medicine, neurology, chemistry, biology. No. We have to learn psychology, education, sometimes even sociology. Who can make it? A university has got all branches of knowledge. That's the meaning. That's the power. We learn the basic languages in order to create tomorrow's answers. Those who learn only the edge, the end of a topic, are perfect in solving the end of the topic. Those who know the basic languages are capable of facing the tomorrow. Dear guests, distinguished partners, Mr. President, I think that the research core of the Israeli society is prepared for the tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ben Sasson. And now it is my pleasure and honor to invite a woman whose name was known, even revered, in academic circles only a couple of weeks ago. Today, of course, she is a household name, Nobel Prize laureate, Professor Ada Yonat.
My President, Mr. Shimon Peres, distinguished guests from Israel and from abroad, Shalom Rav. I was told that I can speak Hebrew, and I thought that it's a golden opportunity for me to do so. Running around the world is different. So with your permission, I'll go to Hebrew. לפני זמן קצר התבשרתי שזכיתי בפרס נובל לכימיה לשנת 2009. זה הפרס המדעי היוקרתי ביותר בעולם, וזכייתי בו שמחה אותי עד מאוד, אך לא גרמה לריגוש העצום שחוויתי ברגעי הפריצה המדעית, כאשר מאמץ דורשני לאורך 2 עשורים הגיע לשיאו והניב תובנות ברמה שהייתה מעל ומעבר לציפיותיי. הישג זה עשוי גם לסייע בשיפור יעילותן של תרופות אנטיביוטיות, ובכך לחזק את המאבק בחיידקים שפיתחו עמידות. בעיה המוגדרת כאחד האתגרים המרכזיים כיום. כך שממחקר בסיסי שהחל משאיפה להבין תהליכי חיים, הגענו למצב שיש בידינו לתרום משמעותית לרווחת האנושות. אנו גילינו איך הגופיף התוך-תאי הריבוזום קורא את ההוראות המוצפנות במאגר הגנטי, ה-DNA, ובונה לפיהן את מרכיבי התא הנקראים חלבונים, שמבצעים את מירב תהליכי החיים. רצוניים, כגון פעולת שרירים, והכרחיים, כגון נשימה, פעילות הלב. בכל תא חי נמצאים ריבוזומים רבים, עד כדי מיליונים, וכולם פועלים כבתי חרושת המבצעים את התהליך המסובך של יצירת החלבונים לפי המידע הגנטי, בהרמוניה, ביעילות ובדיוק מרבי. אך, היות בוועידה זו עוסקת בחזון העתיד ולא בהישגי העבר, אעבור לכך. מכיוון שממחויתי מוגבלת למדעי הכימיה והביולוגיה, בחרתי להתמקד בנושא אחד מאלה שאני צופה להם גדולות ונצורות, הגנטיקה. לצד אפיון מקיף של הצופן הגנטי הפרטני שאני צופה שיקרום גידים במאה הבאה, אדגיש שתי נקודות נוספות. הראשונה, פיצוח הבסיס הגנטי למחלות מורכבות ונפוצות, כגון יתר לחץ דם, סוכרת, סרטן, השמנת יתר ומחלות ניווניות. והשני, אפיון הגורמים הגנטיים המשפיעים על התגובה האנושית. משפיעים על התגובה האנושית לתרופות, פרמקוגנטיקה בלועזית. ההתקדמות בשני השטחים האלה עתידה לאפשר רפואה אישית שמהווה את היישום הרפואי האולטימטיבי למחקר בסיסי. תרומתנו כישראלים יכולה להיות משמעותית ביותר לא רק בשני תחומים אלה, אלא בכל תחומי המדע הגלובלי. זאת, בתנאי שיהיה בידינו לאפשר למדענים ולרופאים לבצע מחקרים רציניים העוסקים בשאלות מפתח בחזית המדע. משפט פשוט זה כולל בתוכו אמת טריוויאלית. כדי לבצע מחקרים פורצים וכדי לעשות שימוש נבון בממצאים מדעיים, יש צורך במימון. ברצוני להסיב את תשומת ליבם של מנהיגינו, כי תקצוב ההשכלה הגבוהה בישראל, שתמיד היה במשורה, הגיע לגבול הסכנה. מחקר בסיסי מעמיק ורציני הוא אבן פינה להבנת תהליכי מפתח בחיים, לקיום שירותי רפואה נאותים ולהתפתחות טכנולוגית. ריכוז מלא, התמקדות והתמסרות למחקר הן המילים הקובעות, ולכן כאשר חוקר חייב להקדיש חלק ניכר מזמנו לפתרון בעיות כספיות, רמת מחקריו יורדת. בנוסף, מחקרים מעמיקים דורשים אורך רוח, בניגוד להשקעות כספיות שנעשות על מנת ליצור רווחים בזמן קצר. לעתים קרובות פירות המחקר מבשילים לאחר זמן רב. אם נשתמש במחקריי כדוגמה, במשך כמעט 2 עשורים שבהם צעדנו עקב בצד אגודל, נתקלתי לרוב בתגובות המשדרות חוסר אימון ואף לגלוג. ואם כי הורשיתי להמשיך בעבודתי, מחקריי לא היו יכולים להתבצע בארץ ללא תמיכה מבחוץ. כיום נראה לי שגם ביצוע מחקרים בהיקפים קטנים בהרבה מוטל בספק. כתוצאה, אלפי מדענים ורופאים שקיבלו את הכשרתם בישראל מבצעים מחקרים מפליאים ברחבי העולם. משיחותיי איתם ברור לי שחלקם הארי היה חוזר לכאן אילו היו מוצאים להם תנאי עבודה מתאימים. איני מדברת רק על משכורת. אני מתייחסת לתנאי עבודה של הרופאים הצעירים המתמוטטים תחת העומס, או המדענים המכלים את האנרגיות האינטלקטואליות שלהם בחיפוש משאבים. אחת משאלות המפתח של כנס זה הוא איך להסב משברים להצלחות. שמענו על זה מקודם גם. עקב המשבר הכלכלי, עתה הזמן להחזיר אלינו את ההון האנושי המפוזר בעולם. לשם כך, עלינו להוסיף תקנים בבתי החולים ולשפר את תנאי המחקר באוניברסיטאות. במקביל, עלינו להלהיב צעירים מוכשרים ויצירתיים להצטרף לשירות המדע, וזה לא קל. רבותיי, המשבר העולמי הוא על סף סיום. אם נמהר ונפעל בתבונה, נוכל להתברך בחוקרים וברופאים מעולים. במקום לאבד את מיטב חוקרינו ברחבי העולם, נחזה כאן באיכות מדעית הנוסקת לגברים. ולסיום, מאז שהתחלתי לדבר ועד עכשיו, נוצרו כאן באולם ביליונים של חלבונים על ידי הריבוזומים. תודה רבה.
Thank you, Professor Yonat. The first speaker today was a scientist, and as Professor Yonat reminded us, it is a frustrating vocation at times. So he made the switch to the much more frustrating field of diplomacy. The man with the many titles that in simple terms mean that he is the Foreign Minister of the European Union, Professor Javier Solana. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was counting last night, after the wonderful meeting you offered us, how many years we have been together, fighting for the same causes. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, 31 years of friendship. President of the State of Israel, my friendship once again. My dear Simon, oh my love. I come to your country in the last 20 years, I think practically every month, trying to be with you. It's a country I like, I feel a good friend of yours, and trying also to work in solving the problems in which all of us we are today. You asked me in the invitation to talk at this first intervention on how to establish or how to look at the trends which are shaping the world of today, trying to look into the future, not the long future, but at least, I would say, to tomorrow. I'd like to do that very briefly. I'd like to say a word about that topic. I'd like to say something about the region, if you allow me to. And if I have time and the moderator allows me to do it, I'd like to say a word about Israel and Europe. My dear friends, we are in a very complicated world, in a moment of change, profound change. Without any doubt, the most important tendency that we are seeing is a fantastic power shift as the first trend. A power shift that takes place among states, but a power shift that takes place also within the state. Among the states is very clear, a big transfer from what we call the West to Asia, to countries like China, India, some countries in Latin America, like Brazil. That is inexorable, and we have to reflect about that. But also shifting within the government, within the states, with power being transferred to the markets, being transferred for the government to the civil society, and even to particular groups and individuals through the mechanism that we have of high tech. And this, to my mind, is taking place in three layers. The first layer is the economic and financial side. This is well known. The crisis, the economic crisis that still we are in, is accelerating some of these trends that began maybe before the crisis. And to give you an idea, if we follow the latest reports of the Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation, the share of the world GDP will diminish by the year 2013, that means tomorrow, by 10 percentage points from here to there, from the so-called West to the Asian countries. That is a big figure. But the second plane is what we may call the social fabric. Power shift is meaning the empowerment of groups and non-state actors. That, in many cases, is weakening the very nature of some of the states to limits that were unforeseen not long ago. Sometimes this transfer of power are through forces of good, very generous NGOs, which try to do a lot of good in the world, but others are not so much a source of good. Others is a source of risk and a source of danger, and we have many examples here in the region and outside the region. Let me go outside the region. The situation in Somalia, for instance, in the fight against piracy, is something that is really was unconceivable time back, not very long back, and today we have practically every country, every important country in the world engaged in trying to solve that problem that makes has tremendous consequences on lives, but also on the economy, on the Indian Ocean. But also you look, for instance, in Africa, to the conflict in the delta of the region river, in which the act of these non-actors, non-state actors, complicates the price of gas and gasoline products and power in that part of the world, and as a consequences in the world at large. Finally, from the point of view of what we may call hard power, from the hard power, that means from the military, not much has changed at this very moment in the last years, although some tendencies may be seen, but still we can say without making any mistake that the United States continues and will continue to be the most important military power in the foreseeable future. Now, all this has a cause on globalization. The globalization, without any doubt, is the mega trend, if I may say. Is responsible all in a way for all these changes. I think that this mega trend of globalization is a positive trend. No doubt that it has the dark sides, but the positive sides dominate by much the dark part. It allows, no doubt, the poor to escape poverty, many poor to escape poverty. It brings people together and enables them to live better and to live longer lives. And I would like to say that this is a product of peace. It's a product of stabilization. Without peace and without stabilization, globalization would not have been possible. And as a consequence of globalization brings peace also. But we cannot forget that because we had stabilization, stability, and peace, the process of globalization can go that far. But, my dear friend, globalization brings a dilemma we still have to solve. And the dilemma is the following. There is no doubt that the problems, the majority of the problems, the big problems, are global, and therefore the solution should be global also. But in fact, the resources and the legitimacy, that means the politics, remains at the national level. And this dilemma manifests itself in nearly all the debates on international issues. Whether it is a financial crisis, which is still we have not found the manner to big the dilemma about globalization and national responsibilities and resources, legitimacy. This is true for the fight against poverty, on the crisis of migration, and very, very evident in climate change. In essence, these are problems require collective action, but we have a question that we have not been able to answer. Who is responsible for what? Who defines the strategy? How do we avoid street-riding behavior, and how we mobilize broad coalitions, including public and private actors? Still, we don't have the response to that. It is important that we move in that direction. Globalization, as I said, is accelerating the power shift, and there is no doubt that in this process of acceleration we need the tables of decision-making to be larger. As was said last night, the G8 has abandoned the possibility of being the leader of solving the global economic powers in the world. The G20 has taken his place. But I question also, and I think we should question, the G20 could take the responsibilities on all other domains of the collective life. It's clearly they do, and they are doing a good job in the economy. But we have to see what at the end we have as a global G, if I may say, able to solve the other problems related, for instance, to security, which I'm not sure, and I'm completely sure that the format of G20 may be the only one. So we have to think about variable geometries among the Gs, open question, an open question that has to be resolved in a short period of time. Now, it is clear that if the countries that are emerging at the speed that they are emerging, the transfer that are receiving those countries in power, as I said, they will require to be part of the solution. And that's all the maxims of nothing about us without us is something that resonates more and more today. Those meetings in which I have participated with 8 countries who are taking decisions and writing papers, and outside the room where the 3 or the 4 most important populated countries in the world waiting to finish their statement and then joining at the dessert, I think is okay. They have to be at the table, and they have to be at the table from the very beginning. The world is in flux, there's no doubt about that, and is bringing about new challenges. Yesterday, today, and I will mention climate change, no doubt about that, and something related to climate change with the policy of scarcity. We are going to have a middle class that increases in the countries emerging, and therefore the tension over the resources is going to be more and more pressing. I was happy to hear yesterday how Prime Minister Netanyahu talked about how we can do things about energy that substitutes oil to liberate some of the pressure that will be on that. The President of Paris talking about water. I would like to join my votes to that, because I think we need to make a big effort collectively on those directions. Let me say that some of these questions, some problems which are new, others come from some time back, but still today are more serious, more grave, because of the situation of globalization in which we live. And I think about terrorism. I mentioned already non-state actors, a fundamental issue, and the rise of political Islam, as to mention some of them. But let me say a word about climate change here. Here in a panel in which a lot of scientists are here, Nobel Prize are there, I think that the consensus that has been achieved among the societies on the importance of the climate change has to do a lot with the scientific consensus among the scientific community. If we were not had within the scientific community the broad consensus that exists on climate change, it would have been very difficult to translate it into political consensus. Therefore, something that has to make us think about the role of a sophisticated scientific community that has to speak out in many of the problems of today. Climate change is one. Others are linked to poverty. Others are linked to many other issues like pandemics, etc., in which will be very, very important to hear the voice also of the scientific community. But climate change is something that we have to face rapidly. It's one of these problems for tomorrow, but tomorrow is today, and therefore we don't have time to lose. We are going to have a very important meeting not long ago, in a couple of months, in the month of December in Copenhagen, and that has been a place where we have to try to find the beginning of a post-Kyoto that may allow us to come out of this situation with the maximum possible consensus. And for that, we need, without any doubt, every single country to contribute. This is one of the problems that cannot be solved by a coalition of the willing. Everybody has to participate in the solution of the climate change problem. Therefore, an appeal to that, and an appeal from the bottom of my heart, and here to the people which are responsible, who have responsibilities in politics, but also those who are part of the international scientific community. Now, let me say a word about proliferation. Proliferation will continue to be and is a very, very serious problem. Probably one of the most serious problems that we have to face today. Nuclear energy will increase in the world of today, no doubt about that. If we are not able, in a collective fashion, to maintain the multilateral framework, and in particular for the Non-Proliferation Treaty, we will be in very serious troubles. There cannot be solutions on a case-by-case basis. On the number of cases, we don't go into framework, collective framework, and as you know, they will some get out of control. As you know, I've been engaged, I continue to be engaged with one of the most difficult problems that we have on non-proliferation. I don't want to talk in detail about that, but as was said yesterday, and I'd like to say today, we cannot tolerate that Iran has a nuclear bomb. And therefore, whatever we can do in that direction has to be done, and you can be sure that I will be doing as much as I can in that direction. Let me concentrate for a minute, if I have time, on the region. Now, when we look to the Middle East, to the region, and we look to globalization in the global world, we tend to think that globalization has not taken place in this part of the world. If you look at some figures, and I picked some figures of a part of the last year, which were very important for the rest of the world. If you look at the year, the 1980 to the 2004, it was a period probably in which more people got out of power, a very impressive growth in the world. The world in the Middle East was less than 6%, around 6% in that period of time, practically then a dismal growth. It is outstanding because at that time hundreds of millions of people, as I said, got out of deep poverty. But in the meantime, to complicate the issue, the population went from 150 million to 220 million, so double. In the year 2007, this is the last figure that is guaranteed, that is correct, 60% of the people in the countries surrounded your country are less than 25 years of age. And this is something to make us think. What is going to happen with the countries, with group of countries, with this growth of population? What are we doing with their education? What is going to amount to be the amount of energy, intellectual energy, capacity energy that is going to be wasted? All these things have to be rethought, and have to be rethought together by the countries which are richer, including Israel. And I think we have to work together. In any case, the European Union is working, is trying and is offering to work together with you, because that situation really cannot continue like that, and it will create only the possibility or the threat of much more extremism in the region. But in the region also there is no sustained trade inside the countries. There is no countries, no trade, no countries which are trading. They are not developing networks to allow the economies to scale with their neighbors. So the situation is a situation that in a way is a situation that looks like outside of the main trends of the world of today. The situation, as it has to change, and we have to make an effort, all of us, to do it. But for that, we have to be frank and say that is necessary stability and is necessary peace. Yesterday, we listened to a speech or a welcome from President Obama. We listened to President Shimon Peres. We listened to Prime Minister Netanyahu talking about peace in the region. I like to join my voice and whatever is my energy and whatever it represents, my voice in that direction. And again, this is not for tomorrow. This is for today. The peace has to be achieved without any delay. And the peace has to be achieved taking into consideration with the spirit that we have already, not only the substance of the peace that has been well described by President Shimon Peres, we know the problems, but also the methodology. I think we have a problem of methodology, and I think that on that we have to concentrate also. I think we need not only to let the two parties negotiate alone, we have some mediation, rapid mediation, to agree on fixed dates to get the agreement and fixed dates to implement the agreement. And that, to my mind, has to be done with energy, with determination, with the same attitude that I heard yesterday from the three main speakers that I heard talking about this issue. Peace is the only way out, and the moment to do it is not tomorrow, but today. Let me say a word to finish on Israel and Europe. I don't think that the Israeli people are aware of the relationship as deep as it is between the European Union and Israel. There is no country outside the European continent who has the type of relations that Israel has with the European Union. Israel, allow me to say, is a member of the European Union without being a member of the institutions. Is member of all the programs, is member, and I would like to say member of participating in all the programs, and I like to emphasize and underline with a very big, thick line, and all the programs of research and technology, and this is fundamental. And I'm sorry to say, but I don't see the president of Croatia here. But I have to tell you now that he is not here, he's a candidate to be part of the European Union, that your relation today with the European Union is stronger than the relation of Croatia. Don't tell him that. Let me finish, because I think the 15 minutes go very fast. I think that in front of the President Peres, I would like to say just words of optimism, of look into the future, and nowhere better than in your presence, Simone. To turn crisis into opportunities is very difficult, it's not impossible, and your life has shown that it's possible to do it. But for that, we need to be bold. We have to take risks. Nothing is done in politics or in life, for that matter, without taking risks. And for me, it's hard to imagine a better place to talk about boldness, to talk about risk, than in Jerusalem. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Solana, and let me invite from here, Jerusalem, Israel, a lady who's not afraid of anything, not even her peers' views, in her pursuit of truth and justice, Professor Ruth Gabizon.
Mr. President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be here this morning. And I would like to talk about turning crisis into opportunities in our little garden in the state of Israel. I want to start with a puzzle, because 65, 62 years ago, Israel was founded as a Jewish state. And this was the culmination of a very long process, starting with the Zionist movement, which was the movement to liberate Jews and to help them exercise their right to self-determination. And the recognition that this indeed was Zionism was, that the culmination of the effort was a Jewish state, was recognized by the international community when the British Mandate was established in Israel in 1917. And it was recognized in the Peel Commission in 1937, and it was definitely recognized by the UNSCOP decision in 1947 in the resulting partition decision of the United Nations in 29th November 1947. Israel was then defined as a Jewish state, and Jewish was not put against Christian or Muslim. Jewish was put as against Arab, because the perception of the history was that there was here a conflict between two movements of national liberation. One is a movement that started and developed at the end of colonialism and the British Mandate. Another interesting, unique movement that brought back into the land of Israel the people who did not have political independence in any other place in the world but this one. And the conflict between these two national movements resulted in the need to give each of these peoples a place of their own. This was the idea, and despite the fact that the Arabs persistently worked against it and thought it was not just, this was not merely something that Jews wanted to do. This was something that was established by the decision of the international community. In fact, the Jewish state was indeed founded, but not only because of the resolution in 47, but also because the Arabs refused to accept that resolution, went to war, lost the war, and as a result, the Jewish state in part of Palestine was established, whereas the Arab state, the Palestinian state in part of Palestine, was not established, and it was divided between Jordan, the West Bank, and Egypt as military occupation in the Gaza Strip. Why is this history relevant when we are talking about the future, tomorrow? This is the past. It's usual that it's impossible to say something meaningful about the future without understanding the past and the future. But here what we have is a very interesting development under which, a very short time after those events, we have claims that the whole project was born in sin, totally misguided, unjustified, illegitimate, a form of colonialism and racism, and, if not militarily vanquished and wiped out of the map, as some members of the United Nations say, at least should, for sake of justice and human rights, give up its nature as the nation-state of Jews. I think this is the demonization, the delegitimation that go with these is at the range and the magnitude of a crisis. And I think it's very important that we try to make this into an opportunity, simply because one of the good things about crisis is that when you have a crisis, you understand that it's not luxurious to deal with something. A crisis means that the stakes are high. And if you don't act, you don't identify the problem, and you don't transcend differences in order to deal with the major challenge ahead, you may be in trouble. And I think this indeed is the case for both Israel and the very, very important questions about Judaism and Zionism that Israel came to respond to and now exhibits and reflect. And I want to argue very quickly that Zionism was an attempt to respond to very deep needs of Jews as individuals and the Jewish people as a group. The State of Israel is the culmination of Zionism. To some extent, the reasons that made Zionism just are gone. We now have a state. We didn't have it before. But in many other senses,
the reasons that we had for having a Jewish state are not only as valid now as they were there, they're in some ways even more valid. And they are complex and go to the most fundamental questions of the identity of the state, the identity of Jews and the Jewish people, and the future of both the state of Israel as a Jewish nation state and of the Jewish people. Why are these connected? Because Zionism, which was never a majority movement within Judaism, was a response to a number of distinct issues for Jews and Judaism. One, very, very important one, was persecution and pogroms and discrimination and exclusion and ultimately extermination. Now, the problem of persecuted Jews, the problem of excluded Jews, was a problem that applied to all Jews irrespective of how Jewish they were, how religious they were, what kind of religiosity they had, were they modern or not. All Jews were vulnerable to these attacks. So the idea of a Jewish state as a safe haven for Jews was an idea that was relevant for all forms of Jewish life. A second element of Zionism was the understanding that Jewish life in the diaspora, in exile, in places, some good, some bad, in which Jews were always a minority, being hosted by other communities and dependent on them for their safety and for their welfare, led to an abnormal existence for Jews. They didn't take responsibility for the whole spectrum of life. They were relegated only to a few occupations. In some of them they excelled, but they didn't have the kind of natural history of a people who shares responsibility for all aspects of their life, starting from working the land, doing all artisanship, doing economics, doing banking, fighting for your country. And people felt that there was a need to revive Jewish life and make it more complete, less narrow, less impoverished. And this again was a vision that held sway for both religious and non-religious Jews, and they wanted to form a full normal Jewish life in a place where Jews were a majority on a land which would be a Jewish land. And the third element is a cultural identity. Because Jews, for many, many generations, remained Jewish mainly by remaining observant. But with Enlightenment and secularism, the challenge within Judaism about the identity of Jewish identity became quite big. And the question for Jews who did not want to exhaust their Judaism by being observant remained critical. And Zionism became the answer for two types of these kinds of Jews. One is the types of maskilim, the people who did not want to assimilate to begin with. They insisted on not being excluded from Judaism just because they decided that observance was not the only way to be Jewish, and they insisted on enlarging Judaism and incorporating it as a culture and civilization, owing much to religion in terms of history, but not exhausted by it. The second group of people for whom Zionists became an answer are those who wanted to assimilate. They wanted to change identities. They felt that liberation from Jewish religion meant also joining the forces of Western Enlightenment. And they sometimes realized that they were trying to move from one thick identity, Jewish and humanist and general and universal, to another thick identity, like French or German or British. And they were willing to privatize their Judaism, to be Jews in their homes and faithful Germans, Englishmen, French outside. And many of them realized that this was not possible. So all of these groups of people converged on thinking that a solution to contemporary problems of Jews and Judaism, not only Jews, not only Judaism, is a Jewish state. The Jewish state, therefore, is a national liberation movement, and it was wise enough to understand that since it was very small, it could not be purist. It could not be only religious or only non-religious or anti-religious. It needed to appeal to all Jews of all persuasion in this dream of creating a home for the Jews. Now, when Israel was founded as a Jewish state, this was against, as I said, opposition by the Arabs. In the declaration of Israel as a Jewish state, Israel declares itself to be Jewish, but declares itself also explicitly as being a member of the family of nations, committed to the human rights of all its inhabitants. The Jewish state was not only for Jews. It was not a Jewish theocracy. It was a state for Jews of all religious attitudes who wanted to have political independence in their own place, in which they could revive and did revive in a very interesting way a public culture, created a majority, and created a cultural critical mass of people, industry, education, medicine, advanced development. Israel has become an achievement of unparalleled dimensions. But despite of all of that, and despite the fact that this became, because Israel was Jewish, the force of the challenges against the Jewishness of the state are formidable. And they come, interestingly, from the Arabs, who always said that this was not legitimate, and from their allies, but also from some new groups. The liberal left in the West, who now sees Israel as a form of colonialism and racism. It's a very interesting process I cannot go into. But it's also joint forces within groups within Israel who are conducting their internal fight about the Jewish identity of the state in a way that challenges not only the perception of Israel as theocracy, but also the legitimacy of Israel as a Jewish state. They argue, together with some Arab voices, that Israel cannot be both Jewish and democratic, cannot be justified. It must give up its Judaism to become a just and democratic state. And the nation of Israelis is not Jewish, because Jewish, these people say, and they buy into the monopoly of Judaism by religion, Jewish is indeed religion. And religions are not entitled to states. The state that is created in Israel was the state of the Jews who came here. But now the nation that was invited here is the Israeli nation. And Israel should be the state of all Israelis, and not the state of the Jewish nation. I want to argue very, very shortly that this is undermining, cutting the raison d'etre of this enterprise. I think that Israel should stress again and again that it is a Jewish state, it is a Jewish nation state. Having a state for Jews is not against human rights and is not a form of racism. It's precisely the same kind of right that Palestinians are rightly demanding for themselves as a right of their national self-determination. Israel is not a state of all Israelis, not because it is not, as a democracy, committed to its demos, and equal citizenship is a major tenet of Israel. Israel is, in a strong sense, the state of all its citizens. But the claim that Israel should be the state of all of citizens is not that all citizens of Israel should have equal civil and political rights, which they do and should have. And if they don't have enough, they should have it to the utmost. Israel is the nation-state of Jews because it has a dual function. It has a function to all its citizens and their welfare, but it also has the function to be the only place in this world where Jews, not Israelis, because it includes the Jews who are not yet Israelis, who may want to be Israelis, Jews who may want to come here because of either of the reasons I mentioned before. Maybe in today's world, Jews are not persecuted and are not going to be exterminated. Maybe. We don't know. Futures cannot be predicted. But they wish to have a full national Jewish life. The wish not to distinguish all the time between being Jewish in the home and being citizen outside the home, which is a legitimate and very important choice, but by many Jews, that is acceptable and important and will remain with us and should remain with us. The Jewish identity of people outside Israel is not, therefore, exhausted by religion. Israel is providing for Jews a safe haven, although it's sometimes less safe to be a Jew in Israel than it is in other places. It does provide a place where Jews control their security, where Jews control their culture for good or bad, where Jews form different forms of Jewish life and show that their differences can be enriching and together showing a way to a Jewish identity not exhausted by religion. Now, these things are in part critical for Israel, but are also critical for Jews elsewhere. You don't have to be a Zionist to understand that to deny only the Jews a right to a state of their own is not about Zionism, it's not about policies of Israel, it's about delegitimating the idea that Jews too are entitled to a state. What I'm saying now is not going to persuade any of Israel's enemies, and this is not my purpose here. My purpose here to say that Jews and their friends and their allies, religious and non-religious, Zionist and non-Zionist, should understand that the vision of a Jewish state is not something that cannot be criticized as something perfect or something that is the answer to past victimology. No, it's not. It's the positive wish of Jews to have a life in which they can fully create their Jewish life and create the opportunity for all Jews to come here to live that kind of a life, to be a party to the creation, the cultural and Jewish creation that is made here, to be partners to this enterprise by support and criticism and dialogue, and to understand that the background of the culture is not severing Israel from its Jewish heritage. It's all an attempt to coherently form a richness of Jewish lives that will permit Jews all over the world to keep Judaism as a rich element of their identity without shame, without hiding, and with an understanding that this is an ancient, important part of Jewish civilization, of world civilization, that any Jew who wants to maintain and transmit should be allowed to do so as they see fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ruth Gavidon. The title of the presidential conference is Facing Tomorrow, and there is nobody, not only in this room, there is nobody in the world more qualified to speak about tomorrow and beyond than our next guest, Dr. Raymond Kurzweil from the United States.
President Perez, excuse me. President Perez, distinguished guests, it's great to be here. President Perez, you and I spoke in a joint keynote in 1985 in Tel Aviv at a technology conference, and you gave an eloquent address where you talked about how technologies were emerging that would transcend national boundaries. So how has that worked out? Well, today we have missiles that transcend national boundaries, biological viruses transcend national boundaries. The internet covers the whole world. We have $2 trillion of e-commerce on the internet that transcends boundaries. It's growing exponentially. It's on its way to being the largest nation in the world if it were a nation. We have social networks that tie people together and create communities across the world. So this was a very prescient insight. And I look forward to our onstage dialogue tomorrow, where we're going to talk about the future of intelligence, including the artificial kind, and I'll come back and talk about that. Last night, Prime Minister Netanyahu talked about a conversation he and I had on Monday about energy and other topics. And what I shared with the Prime Minister was a study that Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, and I did for the National Academy of Engineering in the United States, where we looked at all the different emerging energy technologies and selected solar as being the most promising because it's growing at an exponential pace. It's doubling. The total amount of solar energy we're creating is doubling every 2 years and has been for 20 years. But people don't notice exponential growth because you start out doubling tiny numbers. But it has doubled 10 times already. It's only 8 doublings away from meeting 100% of the world's energy needs. Well, then the Prime Minister asked, do we really have enough sunlight to do that, to keep doubling another 8 times? And I said, we have 10,000 times more than we need. We only have to capture 1 part in 10,000 of the sunlight that falls on the Earth to meet all of our energy needs. And we're applying nanotechnology, which is a form of information technology, to create new materials and new solar panels, new energy storage devices, batteries, that are growing at this exponential pace. So we'll keep this going for a very long time. And within 16 years, 8 more doublings, we can meet all of the world's energy needs. And he thought this was very intriguing and announced yesterday a national commission to really accelerate this process. But people tend to dismiss exponential progressions when they're at a small stage. The Genome Project was announced in 1990. Mainstream scientists said, there's no way you're going to sequence the entire human genome in 15 years. We've just had our best scientists, the most advanced equipment, and around the world we collected 1/10,000th of the genome in 1989. Halfway through the project, the skeptics were going strong, saying, I told you this wasn't going to work. Here you are halfway through the project, and you've only finished 1% of the project, kind of where solar energy is today. But that was right on schedule for an exponential progression. It had been doubling every year, but you start out doubling little numbers. By the time you get to 1%, you're only 7 doublings away from 100%. It continued to double every year. The cost came down by half every year. It was $10 per base pair in 1990. It's a small fraction of a penny today. The project was done a year ahead of schedule. And every other aspect of biological technologies are gearing up at this exponential manner. And Israeli technologies are in the lead in many of these areas. When Bibi and I were students at MIT some decades ago, we all shared a computer, took up half a building, cost tens of millions of dollars. The computer in my cell phone today is 1 million times cheaper. It's 1 million times smaller. It's 1,000 times more powerful than the computer Bibi and I shared some decades ago. That's a billion-fold increase in the amount of computation per shekel, per dollar, as of a few years ago. We'll do that again in 25 years. As powerful as these devices are already, we'll multiply them another billion-fold in the next 25 years. And what used to fit in the building now fits in my pocket. What fits in my pocket today will fit inside a blood cell 25 years ago. We're going to be putting these intelligent computers inside our bodies and brains. If that sounds very futuristic, I'd point out that we're already doing that. If you're a Parkinson's patient, you can put a computer inside your brain today. Some of this technology has been pioneered here in Israel. It actually replaces the biological neurons destroyed by that disease. The latest generation actually allows you to download new software to the computer inside your brain from outside the patient. It's not blood cell size today, it's pea-sized, but we're going to shrink that 100,000-fold over the next 25 years, so these will be the size of a blood cell in 25 years. Now, it was mentioned earlier that you can't predict the future. That's true if you talk about when a war is going to break out, which company is going to be successful. But if you talk about the underlying power of these technologies, the number of MIPS you can buy for $1 of computation, number of bits per dollar, number of bits we're moving around on the internet, the number of bits of data we're getting about the brain, the spatial resolution of brain scanning, the power of biological technologies. I could mention 50 other things that are basically measuring the power of information technology, not just with these electronic gadgets, but in many different fields. They follow very predictable trajectories. I started studying this 30 years ago because I realized that timing was successful to being an inventor, and I wanted to see if I could predict where technologies would be so that I could meet that moving train, because the key to being successful is timing. Larry Page and Sergey Brin had a great idea about search engines, but they did it at exactly the right time. So I began to study technology trends. I looked at many different technologies, And I wasn't expecting to see a ready formula that would predict it, but I thought maybe we could get some idea of where technology would be. And I made a rather startling discovery. If you look at these underlying measures of the power of information technology, they follow exquisitely predictable trajectories. In the case of computers, this goes back 120 years to the 1890 American census. Very smooth exponential growth, doubling every few years. Now it's doubling every 11 months. That describes the trajectory of these technologies. And what we can predict is that they grow exponentially, and that's not intuitive. Our intuition is that technology, or that everything, progresses in a linear manner. If I take but there's a profound difference between our intuitive linear perspective and the historically correct exponential perspective. If I take 30 steps linearly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that reflects our intuition about technology, I get to 30. If I take 30 steps exponentially, 2, 4, 8, 16, and that reflects the reality of this progress, I get to 1 billion. It makes a huge difference. That's why my predictions about these technologies are surprising to people. In the early 1980s, I saw the predecessor to the Internet. It was called the ARPANET, after the U.S. Defense ARPA agency, doubling every year. But it was only tying together a few thousand scientists. But I did the math and projected a World Wide Web connecting hundreds of millions of people to each other and vast knowledge resources emerging in the mid-1990s. People thought that was ridiculous when the entire American defense budget could only tie together 2,000 scientists in a year. But it happened right on schedule. That's the power of exponential growth. Doubling every year means multiplying by 1,000 in 10 years, 1 million in 20 years. And it's not just these gadgets we carry around. It affects everything we care about. And an important area is health and medicine. Health and medicine was not an information technology up until just recently. It was hit or miss. We would just find things that happened to work, but we really didn't understand why they worked. Now, it is an information technology. We have the human genome, which I mentioned. That was an exponential progression. That represents the software that life is based on. Now, how long do you go without updating the software on your cell phone? It updates itself every few days. But we have software running in our body, our genes, that are thousands of years old, some cases millions of years old. One example, the fat insulin receptor gene, says hold on to every calorie because the next hunting season may not work out so well. That was a good idea 1,000 years ago. We had no refrigerators. We stored our food in our bodies. Today, that underlies an epidemic of obesity, especially in my country. Well, we'd like to be able to tell the fat insulin receptor gene, don't store every calorie. We'll have enough calories tomorrow. That was actually tried. We have technologies that can do that in animal experiments near where I work in Boston, Massachusetts, at the Johnson Diabetes Center. These animals ate ravenously. They ate a lot while remaining slim, and it wasn't a fake slimness. They didn't get diabetes. They didn't get heart disease. They lived 20% longer. They got the benefits of eating less while eating more, and there's several pharmaceutical companies rushing to bring that to the human market. That's just one of the 23,000 genes we'd like to consider changing to be consistent with our modern world today and extend human longevity. There are genes that we could turn off that promote heart disease and cancer and aging processes. There's genes we'd like to add that would protect us from those things. And we have new technologies now that can change our genes, not just in a newborn, but in a mature individual. RNA interference, which just got the Nobel Prize, can turn genes off. New forms of gene therapy can add new genes. And I'll talk tomorrow a little bit before our dialogue how these technologies work. We can design them on computers. We can test them out on biological simulators that can simulate and predict what things will do inside the human body, and these are gearing up exponentially. Now, all of these things I've mentioned are in an early stage, but people confuse an early stage with meaning that these things are going to take centuries and ignore the tremendous power of exponential growth. These technologies, now that they're an information technology, are going to be 1,000 times more powerful in 10 years, 1 million times more powerful in 20 years, and it will be a very different era. In my health books, we talk about 3 bridges to dramatically extending human longevity. Bridge 1 is what you can do right now, and there's actually more that you can do than people realize to slow down aging disease processes. The goal of that is really to bring us to the second stage, which is the full maturation of the biotechnology revolution, with many of the leaders here in Israel and many of the pioneering work coming out of Israeli research facilities and universities, where we can really reprogram the software of life. And that'll bring us to the third bridge, which is the nanotechnology revolution, where we can go beyond the limitations of biology. If I were to say someday you'll have millions and eventually billions of nanobots, blood cell-sized robots, in your bloodstream, going through your body, augmenting your immune system, keeping you healthy from inside, you might think, well, okay, that sounds very futuristic. I point out there's actually about 50 experiments already in animals of doing that with the first generation of blood cell-sized devices that are nano-engineered. One scientist cured type 1 diabetes in rats with a blood cell-sized device, lets insulin out in a controlled fashion, blocks antibodies, has 7 nanometer pores, which are very tiny pores to let the insulin out. And this has actually worked and is now, they're gearing up for human trials. At MIT, they have a device that can detect cancer cells in the bloodstream. These are blood cell-sized devices. Latch onto them and destroy them. So these are early experiments also, but these technologies will be 1 million times more powerful in 20 years. And we will be adding them to our body and brain. There are already today artificial pancreases. There's not an organ you can mention where there aren't augmentations or replacements being developed to go beyond the limitations of biology. And sometimes people say, well, if we're going to put all these technologies in our body, they're going to go inside our brain, interact with our biological neurons, put our brains on the internet, are we going to lose our humanity? Well, it really depends on how you define being human. I define being human as the species that goes beyond our limitations. Ever since we picked up a stick to reach a higher branch, we've been using our tools to go beyond our limitations, to make ourselves more than we are. And then we created technology, and that has accelerated and grown exponentially, first to expand our physical reach. Now it expands our mental reach. I can access all of human knowledge with a few keystrokes that make me smarter than I would be otherwise. And these are getting closer to us. When Mr. Netanyahu and I were students at MIT, we had to go take our bicycles across campus to get to the computer. Now it's in our pockets. It eventually will be inside our bodies and brains. And people wonder, well, this is only going to be the province of the rich. The wealthy will have these tools to make ourselves greater, and the poor won't have them. And I say, yeah, like cell phones today. Half the world, actually 2/3 of the world, 4 billion people have cell phones, and they're not just phones. They are very powerful communicators and knowledge access devices that allow us to access all of human knowledge. It took us 10 years to put out the first billion cell phones, 3 years to put out the second billion, 14 months to put out the third billion, 8 months to put out the fourth billion. Within 2 years, there'll be 6 billion cell phones. And they don't just make phone calls. They do, well, according to Apple, 65,000 different things. And they really expand who we are. So these technologies make ourselves greater. They do, as President Perez pointed out 15 years ago, transcend limitations. They transcend boundaries. They allow us to create communities that expand beyond our reach. I think it's a very democratizing technology. In my first book in the 1980s, which I wrote in the early 80s, I talked about how the Soviet Union would be swept away by this decentralized electronic communication that was emerging, which was much more powerful than the copiers they had been banning. And indeed, in that 1991 coup against Gorbachev, the photo opportunity was Yeltsin standing on a tank. But what really overturned that coup was the clandestine network of teletype machines connecting emails and fax machines that kept everybody in the know. And then we saw a great wave of democracies during the 1990s with the rise of the World Wide Web, and we can see the impact of social networks today. And it's democratizing in terms of our creativity. A kid in her dorm room today can create a full-length high-definition motion picture with her $300 high-definition camera and our personal computer. You used to have to be a Hollywood studio to do that. A couple of kids at Stanford wrote some software on their $1,000 laptops, revolutionized web search, and created a company worth $150 billion today. So the tools of creative change are in everybody's hands. I got back from China recently, and half the people in China have these devices, and they're communicating with each other, and they're creating knowledge. It's true of people all around the world. So I think it's a very exciting time to be alive. Technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used to expand our creativity or be destructive. So everybody needs to get engaged to keep these technologies safe, to create defensive systems against people who would abuse it. But I think the potential for tomorrow is very optimistic indeed. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kurzweil, and the last speaker in this morning plenary is known all over the world for clear thought, clear and fresh ideas, and the passion in which he fights for them, Bernard-Henri Lévy from France.
Monsieur le Président, chers amis, j'arrive littéralement ce matin de l'aéroport et je sollicite votre indulgence pour deux raisons. La première, c'est que je vais malheureusement, mais je crois que vous êtes équipés pour cela, parler français. Et la deuxième raison pour laquelle je demande votre indulgence, c'est que je vais essayer de faire ce qu'un intellectuel devrait faire avec le plus de prudence et de précaution, mais que je voudrais néanmoins tenter de faire. Je voudrais ce matin essayer de parler politique. Je voudrais vous dire d'abord que j'arrive de Madrid, avant-hier de Paris, il y a quelques jours des États-Unis, et que je suis aujourd'hui inquiet, plus inquiet que je ne l'étais sans doute toutes ces dernières années, pour le peuple juif et Israël. Je sais que mon ami Jacques Attali a donné une interview récente dans un grand journal israélien où il a dit que l'antisémitisme en Europe, pour lui, n'était pas un vrai sujet. Il a raison s'il pense à l'antisémitisme dans sa forme ancienne, les vieux clichés usés et que l'histoire a discrédité. Je crois, en revanche, qu'il a tort s'il oublie la nouvelle forme qu'est en train de prendre le vieux virus et qui s'organise tout entière autour de ce nouveau noyau qui le rend à nouveau audible et acceptable et qui est la haine, la réprobation, la satanisation parfois d'Israël. L'antisionisme n'est pas le seul ressort de l'antisémitisme en Occident. Le négationnisme en est un autre, la concurrence des victimes en est un également. Je crois néanmoins que la haine d'Israël est en train de devenir, à une vitesse qui m'épouvante parfois, le cœur du nouveau dispositif, et il y a là donc une raison, avec sérénité naturellement, avec l'esprit combatif qu'il convient d'avoir face à ce type de situation, mais je crois qu'il y a lieu aujourd'hui d'être inquiet. Il y a lieu d'être inquiet pour une deuxième raison que vous connaissez tous aussi, mais que je voudrais rappeler pour mémoire, car je ne suis pas sûr que l'on s'en souvienne toujours dans les termes qui conviennent. Il me semble que lorsque l'on regarde l'état du monde et la situation d'Israël du point de vue non plus des Européens et des Occidentaux, mais du point de vue de ses adversaires traditionnels, disons cette frange du monde arabo-musulman pour qui l'existence même d'Israël a toujours été un problème. Il me semble que nous sommes face aujourd'hui à une situation inédite, beaucoup plus préoccupante que ce que j'ai pu connaître moi-même il y a 10, 20, 30 ou 40 ans lors de mon premier voyage en Israël. Après la guerre des 6 jours, après la guerre du Kippour, dans les années 80, Israël avait des ennemis redoutables, naturellement, acharnés à le défaire, mais enfin des ennemis qui avaient un agenda, qui avaient des buts de guerre, avec laquelle il était possible, en apparence, en tout cas, c'est du moins ce qu'il prétendait, de faire des compromis et de s'entendre. Pour la première fois dans son histoire, c'est un fait stratégique considérable. Israël a des ennemis qui n'ont plus d'autre agenda que sa pure et simple annihilation. Le Hezbollah, il y a 3 ans, a déclenché une guerre contre Israël sans aucun conflit territorial avec lui. Le Hamas, il y a quelques mois, a déclenché un autre conflit alors même que, comme vous le savez, le territoire d'où le conflit partait avait été évacué. Israël est donc confronté pour la première fois à une haine brute, sans motif, sans véritable but de guerre, dans le langage des stratèges, des théoriciens de la guerre, dans le langage de Clausewitz, on pourrait dire que l'animosité qui poursuit aujourd'hui Israël a des îles, mais pas de Zvek. Des îles, c'est des buts militaires, des cibles militaires, des Zweig, c'est des buts politiques à quoi les premiers seraient ordonnés. Cette situation-là, pour Clausewitz, c'était la situation du cauchemar par excellence, et c'était l'impensable même. Une guerre qui s'ordonnerait à des cibles militaires, qui ne serait pas elle-même suspendue à des objectifs politiques, pour le grand théoricien de la guerre qu'était Clausewitz, c'était une guerre inconcevable. Elle a été conçue pour la première fois par un autre Allemand, Pufendorf, dans la forme, dans le concept de la guerre totale ou de la guerre d'anéantissement. Il y a eu dans l'histoire des hommes quelques guerres totales menées à bien, pas beaucoup, quelques-unes. La guerre de Troie, la troisième guerre punique, la première guerre mondiale vue du point de vue allemand, la deuxième naturellement. Eh bien, je crois qu'aujourd'hui, qu'on le veuille ou non, et sans dramatiser outre mesure, Israël fait face à des adversaires qui, contrairement à ses adversaires d'hier, pensent leur guerre dans la forme et dans le concept de la guerre totale. Lorsque l'on ajoute à cela cet autre phénomène, cet autre événement stratégique majeur, et qui n'a échappé à aucun d'entre nous, que ces nouveaux acteurs sont adossés à une puissance étatique qui semble être sur le point de se doter d'armes de destruction massive dont le but explicite est de détruire Israël, on voit bien que se met en place un piège, la double mâchoire d'un piège qu'il faudrait être fou pour ne pas prendre aujourd'hui au sérieux. Alors quand on est face à cela, d'un côté une tentative insistante de délégitimation, de l'autre côté une guerre pensée par des acteurs faibles en tant que tels, mais adossés à un État puissant dans la forme de la guerre totale, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Quelle est la riposte appropriée? Il n'y en a pas 36, historiquement, dans l'histoire des peuples, des civilisations ou des nations. Il n'y a pas 36 ripostes à une situation de ce genre, il y en a 2, et 2 seulement. La première riposte, c'est naturellement la riposte ou la dissuasion militaire, et c'est la raison pour laquelle il est capital de ne céder sous aucun prétexte, sous le prétexte d'aucune promesse ou d'aucun chantage, à ce principe absolu, maintenu depuis la fondation de l'État par tous les dirigeants de ce pays, de la supériorité militaire stratégique d'Israël sur tous les terrains et sur tous les théâtres. Ça, c'est le premier principe. Quand on a affaire à ce type d'adversité, il faut, quoi que l'on nous raconte, quelques promesses que l'on nous fasse miroiter, ne pas céder sur ce principe de l'autosuffisance et de la supériorité stratégique de l'État. Mais il y a un autre principe que connaissent les philosophes ou les historiens du passé, et qu'un historien grec, Thucydide, écrivant à propos de l'empire athénien des menaces qui pesaient sur lui et de son inévitable déclin, a formulé de la manière suivante. Thucydide dit, d'Athènes, que, aussi fort que l'on soit, nul n'est jamais assez fort pour être sûr d'être toujours le plus fort. Et il en concluait que, à la supériorité militaire, doit nécessairement s'adjoindre, si l'on veut desserrer le piège, desserrer les mâchoires du piège, qui n'était pas le même, certes, à la supériorité militaire doit s'adjoindre une supériorité politique. Or, la politique, comme vous le savez, ça a toujours été un problème, une source d'embarras pour le peuple juif et en particulier pour Israël. Vous connaissez les textes du livre de Samuel sur la fondation de la royauté, sur ces hommes qu'il faut aller chercher de force pour les contraindre à devenir rois. Vous connaissez l'histoire de ces grands généraux comme Gédéon qui ne veulent pas être rois car ils savent qu'ils seraient de piètre politique. Vous savez combien cette question de la souveraineté politique, de la façon de la penser, a été une pierre d'achoppement, une pierre de débat, une source d'embarras dans toute la grande philosophie juive moderne. Les échanges sur ce thème entre Franz Rosenzweig, resté en Allemagne, et Gershom Scholem, venu fonder l'université hébraïque de Jérusalem. Il y a entre le peuple juif et la politique comme un malaise. La question de la politique, c'est dans la pensée juive une sorte de trou noir. En clair, il y a en Israël les plus extraordinaires écrivains, les plus grands savants, les plus belles universités du monde, les recherches sur le cerveau les plus avancées, les esprits les plus brillants, les talmudistes les plus extraordinaires. Je ne suis pas sûr, sans esprit polémique exagéré, que la classe politique israélienne ait toujours été, ces dernières décennies, à la hauteur de ce souffle qui a porté le peuple juif et qui porte toujours le peuple d'Israël. Pour le dire encore autrement, il y a dans la tradition juive, il y a dans le judaïsme d'aujourd'hui tel qu'il s'incarne en Israël, un immense art militaire, un immense art pastoral, la double science de gagner les batailles et de guider le troupeau humain à la manière dont cela se pensait dans les textes bibliques. Ces deux sciences-là ont ici leurs plus extraordinaires experts. En revanche, ce mixte d'art pastoral et d'art militaire, dont les prophètes nous disaient, comme le diront les philosophes grecs, ce mixte des deux, qui devrait être l'art politique, ce mixte de l'art militaire et de l'art pastoral qui s'appelle l'art politique, et qui consiste à surprendre, qui consiste à faire événement et à trouer l'histoire, qui consiste à faire l'histoire et à ne pas se laisser faire par elle, ce mixte-là, on ne peut pas dire que ce soit le point fort de ce pays. Or, si la situation est celle que j'ai décrite, la situation de ce double piège occidental et arabo-musulman, c'est pourtant bien de cela que l'on a aujourd'hui besoin, une résurrection de ce mixte de l'art pastoral et de l'art politique, ici à Jérusalem, dans la forme du politique. Qu'est-ce que ce serait, cette résurrection de l'art politique? Qu'est-ce que ce serait une approche véritablement politique, pas militaire, pas pastorale, pas seulement gagner les batailles, pas seulement compter sur le Messie qui est peut-être déjà là. Qu'est-ce que ce serait une approche politique des questions qui face tomorrow, et en particulier de la question la plus brûlante de tous, évidemment, qui est la question palestinienne. Permettez-moi de vous dire que poser politiquement la question palestinienne, la poser politiquement, cela consisterait, et c'est ceci qui n'a pas été fait, à mon avis, ni par les intellectuels, mais ni surtout par les politiques, ces dernières décennies, cela consisterait à renverser, terme pour terme, le paradigme sur lequel fonctionnent ici et ailleurs et en diaspora les femmes et les hommes de bonne volonté. On parle de la paix comme d'un processus. Parler politiquement de la paix, ce serait en parler comme d'un événement, pas un processus qui va durer des années, d'où on peut s'échapper à tout instant, qui suppose des bifurcations, qui suppose des bretelles, des déviations, par où l'on peut et par où l'on sait d'avance. Nous le savons aujourd'hui, d'où l'on sait d'avance qu'un jour on s'échappera, je pense, à la partie palestinienne. Renverser terme pour terme le paradigme, cela veut dire aussi considérer la question de la paix non pas comme une collection d'éléments, mais comme un bloc. Vous savez comment toutes les tentatives, parfois magnifiques, héroïques, je pense à Oslo et je pense à Ehud Barak en 2000, vous savez comment elles ont achoppé sur ce fait très simple, que dès lors que l'on laissait de côté des questions que l'on supposait trop épineuses pour ne pas empêcher un consensus, eh bien ces questions-là, comme le refoulaient dans l'inconscient freudien, elles revenaient très vite et faisaient échouer l'ensemble de la mécanique. La paix, la pensée politiquement, c'est la pensée comme un bloc. Je crois que cela consiste aussi, parler politiquement de la question palestinienne, parler politiquement de l'avenir d'Israël, cela consiste à penser en termes d'événements, en termes de blocs, et ça consiste à ne plus peut-être penser en termes de dialogue, de double reconnaissance, cet interminable processus où l'on est comme des figurants d'un grand théâtre hegelien, où l'on rêverait de recevoir la reconnaissance de l'autre. Peut-être qu'il faut sortir aussi de cette logique-là, et peut-être faut-il entrer dans une logique véritablement politique qui consisterait à offrir une solution de paix. En clair, ce que je crois, c'est que réinjecter de la politique dans ces affaires, afin de desserrer le double piège dont je vous ai dit un mot, cela veut dire quitter cet univers sentimental, cet univers pathétique où ont trop souvent baigné les réflexions sur la paix. S'aimer, devenir amis, je ne crois pas. Faire la paix, pas l'amour. Et faire l'amour peut-être après, bien sûr, s'aimer ensuite, d'abord la paix. Cela voudrait dire concrètement, je crois que l'on peut rêver à voix haute, on peut rêver d'une classe politique israélienne, d'un chef de gouvernement ou d'un chef d'État qui, après consultation, naturellement, qui affirme haut et clair, sans dialogue, haut et clair, l'évidence, la nécessité du fait national palestinien, son évidence en tout cas, qui ensuite en définissent à la fois le principe. Le fait national palestinien, ça ne peut pas être le droit au retour, dans son principe, qui voudrait dire deux États palestiniens et non pas un, naturellement, qui en définissent les frontières compatibles avec la sécurité d'Israël, qui en définissent le régime, État démilitarisé ou non, et qui, fort de cette offre, on pourrait imaginer, je rêve pour ma part, d'une grande conférence convoquée ici, à Jérusalem, pas aux États-Unis, pas à Paris, à Jérusalem, par les autorités israéliennes, rassemblant les parties prenantes au conflit, les États arabes modérés, les alliés occidentaux, et venant rendre public non pas ce processus, non pas ce cheminement, non pas ce long travail pathétique et lacrymal de la double reconnaissance, mais cette offre claire de paix. Si cela était fait de deux choses l'une, ou bien cet acte-là, c'est la seule définition d'un acte politique, un acte décisif, un acte présentant la paix comme un bloc et en faisant un événement. Première solution, ça marche. L'auteur de cette offre-là, tel un nouveau De Gaulle, change la donne, renverse la table et en quelques mots, en quelques phrases, change le paysage géopolitique pour autant qu'il tourne autour d'Israël. Si ça ne marche pas, si les États arabes modérés refusent de se reconnaître dans un plan qui serait vraisemblablement le leur, si la partie palestinienne confirme ce que certains d'entre nous savons depuis longtemps, à savoir que l'État, ils y tiennent pas tant que ça et que c'est peut-être pas ça leur véritable souci, si ça ne marche pas, au moins, le monde sera-t-il pris à témoin? Les autres seront-ils mis au pied du mur? Et dans cette guerre qui se livre sur tous les théâtres sans exception, et où il convient à chaque fois de garder la supériorité stratégique, eh bien sur le théâtre de l'opinion, sur le théâtre des idées, sur le théâtre où il fait bon être victime, sur le théâtre où prévaut depuis 40 ans ce que j'ai appelé dans un livre ancien le syndrome vietnamien, c'est-à-dire le fait que c'est votre faiblesse qui fait votre véritable force, et que c'est le plus faible, le plus apparemment victimisé, celui qui endosse avec le plus d'entrain les habits de la victime, eh bien ce théâtre est pulvérisé. Plus de primes à la victime, plus de renversement des rôles, plus d'anciennes victimes devenues bourreaux, plus d'États israéliens oppresseurs. On change la donne, on change le théâtre. Accessoirement, si cela était dit, et si une haute voix disait cela ici à Jérusalem et en prenait le monde à témoin, l'art militaire et l'art pastoral viendraient se nouer dans cet art politique réinventé, mais aussi, last but not least, ils se réconcilieraient tous les trois avec ce qui a fait l'originalité, la force et qui le fait toujours du sionisme et d'Israël, c'est-à-dire la morale. Ce magnifique concept d'un État pas comme les autres, cette étrange et belle notion de pureté des armes, dont je peux affirmer, pour en avoir été témoin, qu'elle n'est pas morte dans Tsahal. J'étais avec une unité d'élite israélienne au Liban il y a 3 ans. Je suis, sauf erreur, le premier étranger à avoir été autorisé à entrer dans Gaza pendant les opérations avec une unité israélienne. Et je peux attester du fait que ce souci moral, ce souci d'éviter les cibles civiles, ce souci de faire en sorte que Gaza ne ressemble pas à toutes ces villes détruites que j'ai rencontrées dans ma vie, et où l'idée de ruine et de destruction pèse vraiment son poids de sang et de mort, c'est pas Gaza. Ce souci moral, il est plus vivace que jamais en Israël, il est au cœur de notre rêve. Il serait magnifique que par cette réinvention du politique, par ce renouage des 3 arts, il vienne retrouver son rôle au plus haut niveau de ce pays et avec le plus vaste écho. Pour faire cela, vous l'avez, j'imagine, compris, pour opérer ce nouage, pour réconcilier ces mémoires, je ne vois qu'un homme. Ici, en Israël, cet homme, c'est le plus jeune d'entre nous, c'est le plus prestigieux des dirigeants d'Israël, c'est celui en qui toutes ces mémoires, la mémoire de Gédéon, la mémoire du roi David, la mémoire des pionniers du sionisme, battent à l'unisson dans son cœur et dans son être. Cet homme-là, qui est pour moi le seul, je vous le dis avec tout mon cœur, à pouvoir opérer cette résurrection-là, politique et morale, il s'appelle Shimon Peres, et c'est avec beaucoup de respect que je me permets de lui rappeler, de rappeler à son souvenir ce mot de l'écrivain français Blaise Pascal que nous avons parfois évoqué ensemble et qui disait que dans certaines parties, on ne perd jamais, que quand on joue de ce type de manière, qui perd gagne, et à l'arrivée on gagne toujours, un peu ou beaucoup. Et lui rappeler aussi ce concept dont nous avons parlé à Paris longuement, ce concept qui me semble être le seul à même d'armer une politique digne de ce nom venant faire renfort au talent militaire d'Israël, qui est le concept d'une paix sèche. Le pari de Pascal et la paix sèche, voilà, Monsieur le Président, à mon humble avis, le programme. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Bernard-Henri Lévy. There's so much more that we'd like to hear from our distinguished guests, but unfortunately, time is not permitting. I want to thank Menachem Ben-Sasson, Ada Yonat, Javier Solana, Ruth Gavizon, Ray Kurzweil, and Bernard-Henri Lévy for this very interesting, very thought-provoking morning. As the Presidential Conference continues today and tomorrow, be seeing you in other discussions. Please stay in your seats until President Shimon Peres leaves. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.